Imagine walking into a luxurious penthouse, your new workplace, where the walls whisper secrets and every glance holds a hidden meaning. You're just the nanny, hired to care for a wealthy, enigmatic man's child. But the moment your eyes meet, something shifts. There's a tension in the air, a magnetic pull you can't ignore. He's powerful, guarded, and undeniably attractive. And despite every rule, every boundary, he starts looking at you like you're the answer to a question he's been afraid to ask. What happens when professionalism blurs into passion? When the man who hired you can't resist crossing the line? Buckle up, because this story will unravel the forbidden, the electric, and the dangerously irresistible. If you've ever wondered what it's like to be drawn into a world where love defies logic, where the heart ignores every warning sign, then you're in the right place. This isn't just another nanny meets boss story. This is about desire that can't be controlled, secrets that refuse to stay buried, and a connection so intense it rewrites fate. By the end of this video, you'll get the answers you've been searching for. The kind of truth that keeps you up at night, questioning how far you'd go for love. So lean in close, because I'm about to take you inside a world where the rules don't apply, and every moment is a step closer to chaos, or forever. Our story begins with her, a young woman stepping into a life she never imagined. She's smart, capable, and just desperate enough to take a job that promises more than a paycheck. Then there's him, a man with a reputation as cold as his penthouse view. He doesn't do attachments, doesn't believe in love. Until her. And between them? A child who might just be the bridge they never saw coming. But here's the twist. Someone doesn't want them together. Someone is watching, waiting, and ready to tear it all apart. You're probably thinking, asterisk, how does this end? Does love win, or does reality shatter the fantasy? Asterisk, oh, you'll find out. But first, let me ask you this. Have you ever wanted something so badly it scared you? That's where our characters are standing, on the edge of a choice that could destroy them or save them. And trust me, you won't see the final twist coming. So hit that subscribe button, because this is one story you don't want to miss. The next chapter? It's where everything changes, and someone won't make it out unscathed. End on a cliffhanger. Asterisk, who's really pulling the strings? And what happens when the nanny discovers the one secret that could ruin everything? Asterisk. The penthouse wasn't just a home, it was a fortress of secrets, each room holding a story she wasn't meant to uncover. From the moment she stepped inside, she sensed it. The way his gaze lingered a second too long, the way his voice softened when he spoke to her, even as he maintained that cool, detached demeanor. He was a man who controlled everything, from his billion-dollar empire to the carefully constructed walls around his heart. But control was an illusion, and she was the crack in his armor he never saw coming. The child, sweet and perceptive beyond her years, seemed to sense it too, weaving her way into both their lives with innocent questions and unexpected warmth. Yet beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect dynamic, something darker lurked. Whispers among the staff, late-night phone calls he took in hushed tones, and the way his ex-wife's name was never spoken aloud, as if erasing her could undo whatever tragedy had come before. She told herself she was just the nanny, there to care for the child, collect her paycheck, and leave before emotions could complicate things. But life had other plans. The more time they spent together, the harder it became to ignore the electricity between them. A brush of hands while passing a coffee cup, a shared laugh over the child's antics, the way he'd watch her when he thought she wasn't looking. Each moment was a spark threatening to ignite a fire neither of them could control. And then there were the signs she couldn't ignore. The locked door in the hallway, the way he tensed whenever someone mentioned his past, the mysterious deliveries that arrived at odd hours, always handled personally by him. She wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble had a way of finding her, and the deeper she got, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a love story. It was a mystery, one that could either bring them together or destroy them both. Meanwhile, outside the penthouse's gilded walls, forces were at work. His business rivals circled like vultures, digging for weaknesses, while an anonymous tipster fed the media rumors about his questionable past. Then there was the woman, always watching from a distance, her face obscured by oversized sunglasses, her presence just fleeting enough to make her seem like a ghost. Was she a scorned lover? A vengeful relative? Or something far more dangerous? The nanny tried to brush it off, but the unease settled in her bones, growing heavier with each passing day. And when she stumbled upon an old newspaper clipping hidden in a drawer, a headline about a missing woman, a face that looked hauntingly familiar, she realized the truth was far more twisted than she ever imagined. The child, caught in the middle of it all, began acting strangely. Drawing pictures of a woman with no face, whispering to imaginary friends, waking up screaming from nightmares she couldn't explain. Was she just sensitive, or was she sensing the danger the adults refused to see? The man, usually so composed, started slipping. His temper flaring at unexpected moments, his protectiveness crossing into paranoia. He insisted it was just stress, but she knew better. The pieces were there, scattered like a puzzle waiting to be solved. And the more she tried to walk away, the more the universe pulled her back in, as if fate itself was demanding she uncover the truth. By the time the first threat arrived, a note slipped under the door, written in jagged letters. "Leave now or you'll regret it." She knew she was in too deep. But walking away wasn't an option anymore. Not when she'd seen the way he looked at her when he thought she was asleep. Not when the child clung to her like she was the only safe thing in a world spinning out of control. And certainly not when she'd started to feel it too. The terrifying, exhilarating realization that she might be falling for a man who could either be her salvation or her ruin. The stakes were rising, the clock was ticking, and somewhere in the shadows, someone was laughing, knowing the game had only just begun. The real question was, who would make it out alive? And when the final secret was revealed, would love be enough to save them, or would it be the very thing that got them killed? The night the power went out in the penthouse, everything changed. It wasn't just a blackout, it was too perfectly timed, too deliberate. One moment, she was tucking the child into bed, humming a lullaby to soothe her nightmares. The next, the world plunged into darkness, and the only sound was the frantic pounding of her own heart. Then came the whisper, barely audible, slithering through the shadows like a serpent. Asterisk, you shouldn't be here. Asterisk, she spun around, but no one was there. Or so she thought. Until the beam of her phone's flashlight caught the glint of something metallic on the floor, a key old and tarnished, with a tiny tag that read asterisk room 417. The problem? There was no room 417 in the penthouse. The man was gone that night, another business meeting, another excuse that didn't quite add up. But when she called his phone, it went straight to voicemail. And then, like a scene from a horror movie, the child sat straight up in bed, eyes wide but unseeing, and said in a voice that wasn't her own, asterisk, "Daddy's not who you think he is." Asterisk, the air turned to ice in her lungs. Was this a game? A trick? Or was something far more sinister at play? She wanted to run, to pack her bags and never look back. But then she remembered the way he'd kissed her in the rain 2 nights ago, desperate and hungry, like she was the only thing keeping him from drowning. He'd whispered, "I need you," with such raw vulnerability that it shattered her resolve. Now, she wasn't sure if she was falling in love with a man or a carefully crafted illusion. The next morning, the penthouse was eerily normal. Sunlight streaming through the windows, the child giggling over breakfast as if last night had never happened. But the key was still in her pocket, burning a hole through her jeans. When she finally worked up the courage to ask him about room 417, his reaction was all wrong. A flicker of panic. A too quick smile. "Must be from the old hotel I used to own," he said, but his knuckles were white around his coffee cup. That's when she knew. He was lying. And if he was lying about this, what else was he hiding? The anonymous notes, the mysterious woman, the child's eerie trances. It was all connected. She just didn't know how yet. Then came the text. An unknown number. A single photo that made her blood run cold. A grainy surveillance image of her, standing in the penthouse hallway, holding the key. The message underneath. Asterisk, you have 24 hours to leave. Or she dies. Asterisk attached was a picture of the child, asleep in her bed, a timestamp from last night. Someone had been inside. Someone who could still be watching. Now the stakes weren't just about love or secrets. They were about life and death. She should have gone to the police. Should have told him. But the moment she pulled up the contact, another message came through. Asterisk, tell anyone, and the game ends. Asterisk, this wasn't a warning. It was a countdown. And then, the twist she never saw coming. While searching his office for clues, she found a hidden compartment in his desk. Inside was a file labeled with her name. Newspaper clippings. Photos. Notes scribbled in frantic handwriting. Asterisk, she looks just like her. Asterisk, her stomach dropped. Was that why he'd hired her? Why he'd been drawn to her? Because she was a replacement for someone else? The pieces were coming together in the worst possible way. But before she could confront him, the child's voice echoed from the doorway, small and trembling. Asterisk, that's my mommy's file. Daddy says she's gone. But I see her sometimes. In my dreams. And in the mirrors. Asterisk, the room spun. Missing ex-wife. A child who saw ghosts. A man who'd built a life on lies. And her, stuck in the middle, with 24 hours to decide. Run for her life, or stay and risk uncovering a truth that might destroy them all. The clock was ticking. The danger was closing in. And the biggest question of all remained. Who was really pulling the strings? Was it the man she was falling for? The ghost of a woman who might not be gone at all? Or something, asterisk someone asterisk, else entirely? One thing was certain. By this time tomorrow, nothing would ever be the same. And the choice she made next would determine who lived, who died, and who would be left standing when the dust settled. But here's what she didn't know yet. The real mastermind was closer than she ever imagined. And they were laughing. The moment she confronted him, the world stopped. The file trembled in her hands as she demanded the truth. Why did she look like his missing wife? Why was the child seeing ghosts? His face crumpled, not with guilt, but with grief. The truth was worse than she imagined. His wife wasn't dead, she was alive, but not in any way she could have predicted. Years ago, after a bitter divorce, his ex-wife had staged her own disappearance to frame him, leaving behind their traumatized daughter and a trail of lies. The woman in the shadows? His ex, watching, waiting, and now threatening to take their child for good unless he handed over his fortune. The key. It opened a safe deposit box containing proof of her scheme. Proof she was willing to kill to keep hidden. Time was up. The final text came through. Asterisk midnight. Bring the key. Come alone, or the girl dies. Asterisk, she knew it was a trap, but the child's life was on the line. The man begged her not to go. He'd already lost too much. But she couldn't abandon the little girl who'd become family. In a heart-pounding race against the clock, they devised a plan. He'd go to the authorities with the evidence while she played decoy, luring his ex into the open. The penthouse felt like a tomb as she waited, the key clutched in her palm, every creak of the floorboard sending her pulse skyrocketing. Then, the elevator dinged. The doors slid open. But it wasn't the ex-wife who stepped out, it was the child, eyes glazed, holding a phone with a live feed of the real villain. The family's trusted housekeeper, the woman who'd been whispering in the child's ear all along. The twist was almost too cruel to believe. The housekeeper wasn't just helping the ex-wife, she was her sister, seeking revenge for a past betrayal. She'd been the one planting the notes, manipulating the child, and feeding the ex-wife information. And now, with a knife pressed to the girl's throat on screen, she hissed her final demand. Asterisk, the key. Now. Asterisk, but just as despair threatened to consume them, the man burst in with police, his ex-wife in cuffs. He'd played his masterstroke, tracking her down using the very evidence she'd tried to erase. The housekeeper screamed, lunged, but it was over in seconds. The child was safe. The lies were exposed. And as the sirens wailed and the flashing lights painted the penthouse in red and blue, she realized something. This wasn't just a story about danger or deceit. It was about love, the kind that fights, that risks, that stays. In the aftermath, the pieces finally fit. The child's nightmares? Trauma from witnessing her mother's manipulation. The locked door? A shrine of investigation he'd hidden to protect his daughter from the truth. And the way he looked at her? Not because she was a replacement, but because she'd become his light in the darkest chapter of his life. A year later, the penthouse was different. Laughter echoed where silence once ruled. The child's drawings no longer featured faceless women, just a family of 3, holding hands. And when he slipped a ring on her finger under the same skyline where their chaos had begun, she knew this was the real twist. Love hadn't just survived. It had won. But here's the secret no one tells you about happy endings. They're not the end. Because as the camera pans away from their embrace, a final shot lingers. A newspaper left on a cafe table, its headline screaming asterisk, millionaire's ex-wife escapes custody. Asterisk, and somewhere in the crowd, a pair of familiar sunglasses catches the light. The screen cuts to black. The message is clear. Some stories don't end. They just leave you breathless, waiting for the next chapter.